Today on my drive, another injury to a Raw superstar, a big return on NXT, and I learned the hard way that technical difficulties kind of suck. Today on the Go Home Spot. Welcome to the Go Home Spot, part of the Wrasslun Show Network, and the only thing that keeps me sane on my drive home from work. I'm Jeff DeHaan, and I'm having a case of deja vu. This is take 2 on my drive after some technical difficulties. So we'll see what I can get through. I've already gone through half my drive, so I don't have a whole lot of time. I'm going to get through what I can. Mike Buzzkill Rome is full of bad news this week before Monday Night Raw. Anyone who doesn't recognize the name, he's the backstage interviewer guy from Raw. Also does ring announcing duties for NXT. Prior to Monday Night Raw, he made a couple announcements on WWE.com and obviously their YouTube channel. The first of which being that Bayley would not be able to compete at SummerSlam. Her shoulder injury turned out to be separated shoulder. It's not something that she's going to be able to recover from quickly enough. So they're going to have 2 triple threat matches on Monday Night Raw. The winner of those 2 would go on to face each other this coming Monday, and the winner of that will head to SummerSlam to take on Alexa Bliss for the Women's Championship. Further bad news from Mr. Rome was that he announced that Scott Dawson of the Revival, during a live event, ruptured his bicep. This sucks. The Revival have barely gotten out of the gate with their main roster run. They debuted right after WrestleMania. And a couple weeks later, Dash Wilder got his jaw broken. So they weren't seen for weeks and weeks. They finally returned a couple weeks ago. And now Dawson's injured. I really hope this doesn't hurt their stock with the company. I'm hoping they're not going to get viewed as being injury prone. The fact that it was one guy and then the other should help. It's not like it was just one member of the team that keeps getting injured, but it's still a set of bad circumstances. What I'd like to see happen, I'd like to see them keep Dash on television, keep him wrestling, keep him on the house shows as well. And even if he's able to travel with his arm, let Dawson show up to TV too. I get that he can't have a full schedule, obviously, but if you keep him on TV, at least you're keeping him in the public eye. You're keeping the Revival in the public consciousness. Because just having them off TV again hurts them more than helps, obviously. If you have them on TV, even if Wilder's gotta just have a bunch of one-on-one matches, he can take on one of the Hardys one week and take on the other the next week. He can take on Gallows one week and then Anderson the next week. You know, they can mix it up and kind of change things around until Dawson's able to come back, and just have Dawson show up on TV and be in his corner. They did that with the Rockers once. Michaels had a knee injury, and they would have Marty Jannetty fight a one-on-one, and Michaels came down to the ring on crutches. So it's not like this isn't doable. It's just, I know how good the Revival is, and I know how over they are with the fans. I don't want to see them become an afterthought, or I don't want to see the company lose faith in them because they've had two injuries so close together. Time will tell, but I'm hoping for a speedy recovery for Scott Dawson. I want to see the Revival back, taking names all over Monday Night Raw. They deserve better than what they've had so far with their main roster push. I'll get to the news for the week with WWE. We'll start off with Raw right after this.
Hey, it's at Adam Coulton.
And at Matthew Sukram.
We do the Wrasslun Show podcast.
And it is tons of fun.
What happened on Raw this week? What went down on Smackdown? We're going to tell you what we think.
Who's going to win the big match at the upcoming pay-per-view? Do they still call them pay-per-views?
We run the gamut. Everything from Cuban hotel guys to bloodthirsty Canadians. My wife just texted, I'm a cut someone.
Case in point, bloodthirsty Canadians.
It's the Wrasslun Show podcast.
Streaming now on the Wrasslun Show Network.
As I had mentioned, two triple threat matches involving the women on Raw. Looking at it on paper, pretty easy to see who's going to be heading to the finals of this mini tournament, if you will, next week. The first match, Sasha Banks versus Alicia Fox versus Emma. The second match, of course, the remaining women from Monday Night Raw, Mickie James versus Dana Brooke versus Nia Jax. As you probably guessed, Nia Jax and Sasha Banks got the victories in those matches respectively, and will be heading into Monday Night Raw this coming Monday to face each other to figure out who's going to SummerSlam. The short answer here would be to say that Sasha Banks would come out on top and head to SummerSlam to take on Alexa Bliss, and that could very well happen. However, considering this is a plan B and probably had to be thought of kind of quickly, I wonder if we might wind up seeing a no contest this coming Monday and have a triple threat at SummerSlam. Number one, SummerSlam is going to be an hour longer show. Much like WrestleMania, they probably want to get as many bodies on the show as they can, so multi-person matches make sense. Number two, if you're just going to have Sasha Banks versus Alexa Bliss, Sasha has to get past Nia Jax. How do you keep Nia Jax strong and keep this whole monster angle that she's had going for her if Sasha has to get past her? So I think it makes sense to have a triple threat match. You could have this one-on-one end in a double countout, and then having it be a triple threat, Alexa Bliss could squeak out at some point with a victory if they're still serious about having Bayley feud with Bliss after she comes back from her separated shoulder injury. So there's a lot of different directions we could see this go. It'll be interesting to see what WWE goes with. As I said, I'm hoping for the triple threat, but I will be disappointed if we do get Sasha Banks versus Alexa Bliss. I thought this was going to be a match for SummerSlam anyways, especially with how their match went the last time they faced one another, where Banks won by countout. Brock Lesnar was the guest on Miz TV. As usual, Miz ran his mouth. Heyman said they were going to have a little bit of role play where Brock Lesnar was going to be playing himself, but The Miz, Bo Dallas, and Curtis Axel were going to be playing the roles of Roman Reigns, Braun Strowman, and Samoa Joe. Brock Lesnar, of course, making short work of the three members of the Miztourage. proving that he is still a beast and that he's ready for SummerSlam. With every week passing, I'm left wondering if we really are going to see Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose possibly challenge for the tag titles. While it might have seemed like a one-off last week, we saw the tag champions facing the former Shield members in 2 one-on-one matches this week. Seth Rollins took on Sheamus and unfortunately did not get the victory. After a little bit of a distraction from Cesaro, Sheamus came out on top. The 2 members of the Bar beat down Rollins again this week. Only this week, we did not get a save from Dean Ambrose. Rollins got beat down, and that was that. Cesaro was then in action later against Dean Ambrose. Dean managed to pull out the win, but of course, there was a post-match beatdown, and Seth Rollins did make the save, much to the joy of his former friend, Dean Ambrose, who then put his hand out for the Shield fist bump. Seth just shook his head and left the ring, and I can't say I blame him. Personally, I'm really, really digging where this angle is going. I genuinely don't know. It's looking like we're going to see a tag title match and possibly see Rollins and Ambrose win the tag team championship. But who knows? Maybe we'll head in that direction and then Ambrose will turn heel. Maybe they won't win the tag titles. There's still a lot of different directions they can go, and I really like the unpredictability of this angle. We had a really nice promo between Finn Balor and Bray Wyatt. Lots of back and forth. Has me really interested in this match. The only thing I can think of as to why they cut this feud short when they started it a couple months ago was so that they could have it at SummerSlam, and that they didn't think the feud would last that long if they had kept it going from when they started it. Speaking of SummerSlam, we had a match announced. Big Show will be taking on Big Cass with Enzo Amore suspended above the ring in a shark cage. This whole thing just doesn't make sense to me. Usually the shark cage is reserved for a heel manager or some sort of heel to keep them from interfering in the match. Paul Ellering was in the shark cage when they used it in NXT in the finals of the Dusty Classic. Chris Jericho is in the shark cage to keep him from interfering in the Roman Reigns Kevin Owens match from a few months back. And yes, this is being used to keep Enzo Amore from getting involved, but Enzo's a babyface. Big Show's a babyface. Like, this whole angle seems backwards. And Big Cass finally ate a knockout punch from Big Show. It only took like a month. Just so sick of this whole angle. I need to get the taste out of my mouth. I'm going to talk about some Smackdown right after this.
I'm Andrew Kent, and here's 5 reasons to listen to the We Have Till 5 podcast on the Wrasslun Show Network. Number 5, I'm handsome. Not that you would notice. Number 4, I love wrestling. You love wrestling. We both love wrestling, so you'll love this podcast. Number 3, I talk about everything, from worst pay-per-view names to best Chris Jericho feuds. Number 2, lists are pretty fun. And number 1, everyone's got their favorites. Where does mine line up with yours? Find out every Friday on the Wrasslun Show Network.
John Cena opened up SmackDown with a promo, and he was really well received by the crowd. Very few boos. Lots of pops for John Cena. So it proves that maybe absence does make the heart grow fonder. Of course, Cena's promo was interrupted by Baron Corbin. After a war of words, it was made official. Corbin is going to be taking on Cena at SummerSlam. Should be an interesting match, and it will be interesting to see if Cena puts the younger talent over, or if Mr. Money in the Bank will fall to the Doctor of Thugonomics. Very happy to see Sami Zayn and Ty Dillinger in another tag match. I'm really glad that WWE seems to be keeping this team together. They took on the Usos, to which the Usos did get the victory, but they need the momentum heading into their tag title match at SummerSlam against the New Day. Naomi took on Miss Money in the Bank, Carmella, and Carmella got the win. Now, this was obviously a non-title match since we have a women's championship match set for SummerSlam, Naomi defending against Natalya. How did Carmella get the win, you ask? Quite simple. James Ellsworth made his return. If you listen very closely, you can hear the Wrasslun show's Matthew Sukram cursing under his breath. I'm glad Ellsworth is back. I'm not a huge fan, but he fits his role very well. He's the new Weasel. Speaking of ladies, Charlotte made short work of Lana. I'm not crazy about this losing streak that they have Lana on, but whatever keeps her on TV and its storyline. At one point, Natty had a storyline where she was passing gas all the time. You gotta roll with the punches and take what's dealt and make the most of it. She seems to be making the most of it. I like the team of her and Tamina, and I'm still very curious to see where this is gonna go. An in-ring promo between AJ Styles, Kevin Owens, and Shane McMahon wound up ending with Styles unintentionally Pele kicking Shane McMahon. Nice to see where this angle is going. Looking forward to that match. It'll be interesting to see where Shane's allegiances lie come SummerSlam. We had a big return at NXT, and I'll let you know who it was right after this.
Hey, it's at Matthew Sukram here to tell you about the Wrasslun Show podcast. You've
got nothing. However, we have till 5 every Friday in the Wrasslun Show Network. This week we're counting down on...
Do we have a problem?
Yeah, Smarky Smark here is trying to take over this commercial.
Did someone say takeover? Because on the Go Home spot, I cover all the goings-on in NXT, including takeovers, as well as everything else happening in WWE and beyond.
Where did you come from, Jeff?
I just drove in.
Well, take the next exit, would you? This is my commercial.
You mean our commercial?
Cut. Try it again. I don't want this commercial to end up like some of the more regrettable movies I review on Ropes to Reels. I want it to end up like one of the good movies I review on Ropes to Reels.
Nobody asked you, Drew.
Oh, you want to go, Sparky Plug?
When you host the Wrasslun Show, the Go Home Spot, Ropes to Reels, and We Have Till 5 podcasts all on one network, spontaneous host battle royals just kind of happen. The Wrasslun Show Network, where everything is wrestling and wrestling is everything.
Sanity opened the show calling out the authors of pain. As the AOP made their way to the ring, Razor was attacked by none other than Eric Young making his return. He zip-tied Razor to the guardrail and then hit the ring as the 3 male members of Sanity beat down Akam, with Nikki Cross screaming all the while. By the end of the beatdown, Razor managed to carry guardrail and all back to the ring and took a little bit of the beatdown himself. Sanity left the tag champions lying. Will they do the same thing at TakeOver? I don't think so. But now that Sanity's back to full strength, this might be their toughest challenge to date. Speaking of tag teams, the Street Profits made their NXT television debut, taking on a couple of greasers known as the Metro Brothers. Chris and JC, decked out in the leather jackets and the white t-shirts, very similar to Deuce and Domino. The Profits made short work of the Metro Brothers, though. This is definitely a match to showcase the Street Profits and what they can do. It was an easy win for them. Looking forward to seeing what the Street Profits have to offer in future matches, but I'm not completely sold on them yet. We'll have to see. I still don't know what's with the Red Solo Cup gimmick and the stirring, but hey, maybe I'm not quite hip with what's it right now. Oh, that just made me feel so old. Drew McIntyre had a face-to-face with his opponent for TakeOver in the NXT champion Bobby Roode. And this face-to-face really shook up the NXT championship scene. William Regal was out there as well, kind of moderating the scene. Roode had a team of security guards with him, which he said were there to keep Roderick Strong at bay. And sure enough, after a short war of words between champion and challenger, Strong's music hit and he came out saying he wanted Roode. It wasn't about the championship. It was about respect, and it was about a fight. Roode had disrespected Strong, disrespected Strong's family, and he wanted to face Roode. Roode, being the heelish manipulator that he is, convinced Strong by saying he can have a match with Bobby Roode, and it can even be for the NXT championship as long as he can get past Drew McIntyre. Regal pointed out that he was the one that made the matches, not Roode, but everyone involved, including Roderick Strong and Drew McIntyre, were on board. So it's set this coming Wednesday, a mere 4 days before NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 3. Drew McIntyre will be taking on Roderick Strong. If Roddy wins, he will get a match against Bobby Roode after TakeOver Brooklyn 3. And if Roode is still the champion, it will be for the NXT Championship. This makes it very interesting because McIntyre right now is still undefeated on NXT television. Will that still be the case after he tangles with Roderick Strong? Who knows? I think the best way to go about it might be to have McIntyre lose, possibly after a distraction from Bobby Roode. That will show a bit of a dent in the armor of Drew McIntyre as he heads into the NXT Championship match. Plus, it kind of adds an element of a swerve here because it makes you feel like Roode will keep the title coming out of TakeOver, which might make it a bit more of a surprise if Drew McIntyre manages to take the championship from Bobby Roode. Plus, it gives Roode something to do without the championship coming out of his TakeOver match if he's got a feud with Roderick Strong. That's the direction I hope they take it. Will they? Time will tell. We got to see Oney Lorcan, Danny Burch 2 this week on NXT after their fantastic match from a couple of weeks ago where Lorcan came out on top. This time it was the reverse. Danny Burch got the victory. We got a handshake after the match and a definite feeling that things are not finished between these two. We're definitely going to get a rubber match down the line, and I look forward to it because these guys have a great chemistry in the ring. This week, not quite as hard-hitting as their last match. Still pretty hard-hitting and very physical, but they had a little more technical aspect than last time, which I liked. It changed it up a little bit. I'm looking forward to their rubber match. Should be a good one. And in the main event on NXT this week, Andrade Cien Almas took on No Way Jose. And as much as I don't like Andrade, he got a much-needed victory here. He really needed the win. He hasn't had a lot of victories lately, and he's heading into TakeOver Brooklyn 3 to face Johnny Gargano, so he needed some momentum heading into that match. Gargano, this is his foray back into being a singles wrestler after a hot run with DIY, so he doesn't necessarily need to to get a victory heading into the match. Gargano already has some momentum, but Andrade, he definitely needed some positive momentum heading into this match. So he got it with No Way Jose. So we're another week closer, just over a week away from a big weekend of wrestling. NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 3 and SummerSlam. The cards are really shaping up. I can't wait. Next week's probably going to be all predictions, so it's probably going to be a little light on the news because these prediction episodes tend to take up a little time. But we'll see. If there's enough newsworthy stuff to talk about, it might be a jam-packed episode of the Go Home Spot. As you may have noticed, if you follow the Wrasslun Show Network, we've got a YouTube channel now. It's where all our video content that we've been posting on the Facebook page has been going, and we're going to have a little bit of extra content from yours truly. I'm going to start posting Match of the Week videos, so stay tuned for that from the Wrasslun Show Network. But that's it for me. A little bit of a short one this week after some technical difficulties. Hit me up on Twitter at the Go Home Spot. I'm Jeff DeHaan. Don't forget, sometimes you go big, sometimes you go home.
This has been a presentation of the Wrasslun Show Network, where